Okay, guys. So we haven't done one of these in ages, but it there's a small pattern I find that's been going on with a lot of the people in our trading community, as well as maybe some of you, and it's happened. Well, it's definitely happened to me, and it's probably happened to you too as well. And what I wanted to talk to you today about is having the difficulty of being able to, let's say you've made your daily target of 10 points in a trading window, and let's just say you do it pretty early on, and not being able to walk away from the trading space, and you end up giving all your money back or taking poor trades. Now, personal experiences in my early days, if I was up on market open at 9:30, I felt like I had to trade till market closes. And what normally happens is when I look back at them days, if I had just walked away in the first hour once I made that chunk of money, I would have had a much less stressful day. However, what's happening is you make your money, then you might take another trade, which isn't a great setup. And then you're constantly chasing the money that you originally had. And maybe by the end of it, you finally finish on the same figure that you would have finished if you'd stopped trading within the first hour. And I don't know, have you guys ever experienced that?
Definitely. I think definitely, there's nothing better than like getting a quick win at the beginning of the day and, you know, knowing that, especially if you've got a target in your mind as well. I know that we certainly teach having a target, and then once you've hit that target, essentially leave it there. Um, I've definitely and transparently sometimes still struggle with it, right? Which is, you've hit your money because you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, you've got the entire day still, you've got the entire day of trading to go. There's still so much more money to be had. And then you go in again and then just give back what you've just basically made. And to your point, you're trying to then get back to where you were and you just keep going back, back, back. And then before you know it, you're back to break even or quite honestly in the red, you know. And then what do? You start doing silly trades now, right? You start oversizing your trade because you're just trying to get back. Um who is it that says it? The guy, I think it's the who's the guy that runs BlackRock? What's his name? I forgot his name is now. He says when you lose 50%, you gotta make 100% now to get back, you know, and that's what leads to um, you know people essentially giving back their wins and ultimately going red and then blowing their account. I
And
think.
that is exactly what I have been struggling this for the last maybe 2 months. That along with overcomplicating it in my mind, right? So for me, I would be trading on the 25K account, which is what I was using at the time. So on there, there's a, I think, contract limit of about 40 MES, 40 ES, right? So you can't realistically, with the drawdown available on that account, use the full 40 ES contracts. But because that forces me to then use MES where I'm doing one or two contracts and then making £50 or £100, that in my mind, I'm thinking, I've done £50 or £100. I've got so much more time left in the day. I can get that to maybe 300 or £400. And there has been days where I've done it and I've consistently been able to do it, but it was developing the bad habit because it was forcing me to then continue sitting at the screen for what is now a half an hour day. I would probably spend like 4 or 5 hours on the charts, and only at like 6 p.m. UK time, or I don't know what time that is in US at that time, but I would only then turn it off because I'm like, okay, let me just chill for the evening now. But where I've now moved over to a larger sized account where it's got a bigger drawdown, I'm able to trade ES, and where now I was making the same 50 or £100 on one or two MES contracts, now I'm able to do 10 MES contracts, which is one ES. By the time it gets to 500 or £1,000, which is the same exact trade, same number of ticks. In my mind, for some reason, it's just helping me walk away from it now, because I know it literally just takes me one good trade in a day, which I know I'm able to do because I was doing it on Mez this whole time. But because in my mind it wasn't enough, I never used to stop. I used to just carry on trading for the rest of the day. So I think it has helped in training me to be able to get those 40 tick moves. And now moving to ES, it literally will take maybe 1-2 trades. And I'm happy to close my laptop then, because in my mind it's just a nicer number. But that's really it.
I think where the psychological part of this comes from, and we as adults, up until we became traders or whatever, we were always had this institutionalized mindset that you have to work all day to get a day's wage. Okay? Previously, you work all day, 9 to 5, whatever, you go home, and at the end of the month, you collect your wages. So in our minds, I believe that people think, how can I just make £2,000 in 10 minutes? I need to carry on, carry on, carry on. This doesn't make sense, like, psychologically. So what people do is continue to trade, because they think, well, my plan was I've got this day today, I wanted to trade, I've hit my target in the first 15 minutes of market, what am I going to do now? And I think institutionalized mindset like that is why we give back the money to the market. And you have to realize, and I say this to all the new students, when you're green, the market is losing money because they have to pay you for your green trade. So naturally, they're going to try and take that back, which is why the casino always wins, because people win and they get greedy and they continue to trade, they continue to gamble, and in the end, the house always wins back what they've given you. And those two things is why people overtrade. Like, you have to try and keep that mindset where, like, if you went to work and you worked a 9 to 5 and your boss at 10 o'clock said, you can go home now, right? You're not going to get paid any extra if you stay. You'd probably go home and enjoy the rest of your day. And you have to have that mindset in trading. And if people find it very difficult to be able to, like, do one trade, make their money and go away, especially if they have nothing else to do for the rest of the day and they planned to find that one trade that's going to pay them well for the next 6 hours, you know? And it's the reason why I think it's the biggest, overtrading is the biggest reason why people blow their accounts, or people end up with going from green day to red days and eventually quitting trading. Because let's be honest, yeah, only 10% of the 100% of people that start trading make it, yeah, if that figure. And most of the time, people get frustrated. Like, so many students that I speak to, they'll say, yeah, I blew my account. So I'll ring them and I ask them what happened. They're like, I know what I'm doing. I know what mistakes I made, but I still made them. And that's because they probably didn't have the discipline to walk away after that particular trade that had them green. And it's almost and it's almost because the winning trade gives you a dopamine, right? When you win a trade, you get that feeling of joy, like, wow, I'm the man, right? And you want it more and more and more. And I said this to Jacob the other day, and I said, when trading became boring for me and I didn't get the dopamine hit, is when I started to see big profits. Because the way I looked at it was like, I've made my money in the first 10 minutes, or I've made my money in the London session. I don't need to then trade again for the rest of the day. I can just chill, I can relax, I can go out, whatever. But that is the hardest part. And the trading and finding an entry model and understanding what's happening on the charts is not hard, let's be honest. Yeah. Like, we have 55 members now, roughly. Everyone knows how to read the chart from doing the course. But then there's a reason why everyone hasn't passed an account, or everyone is still paper trading, or they're not confident with taking a challenge. And that's the psychological part. And that has to come from within yourself, you know? Like
Yeah,
you have to be able to take that profit and think to yourself, wow, like I finished work early today.
definitely. I think also to add on to that as well, because I think they're all good, valid points there. Um, I think what a lot of people tend to do as well is compare their gains to other people's gains, right? And that can also lead to it, right? Because there's nothing worse, from in my view anyway, there's nothing worse than like calling the right trade, right? Getting out too early, banking like you say $100 or whatever, the trade just keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, and everybody else is sat in the trade still, and they're made 4 or 5 times you've made. That then leads to shit. As soon as it gets a little pullback, I'm gonna go jump back in again. And then now suddenly you're trying to force that trade now, you've missed the optimum entry point, and now you're in that place of damn, is it going up? Is it going down? Is it going up? Is it going down? And that leads to that constant of over trading again. Do you know what I mean? And then suddenly before you know you think, oh, I've only just lost $20 on that. But suddenly you do that 4 or 5 times, and then suddenly you've just dropped not just the 100 that you picked up, but also less now. Do you know what I mean? And now your mind is completely all over the place now, and you're back in that space again. Do you know what I mean? So comparing it to what other people are doing, again, I'm only saying it from personal experience. I know that I have done that myself, and me, I think I've gone through a bit of a crazy, still am going through a crazy trading journey in terms of like where I started, where I am now, you know. And honestly, like I don't like hearing you guys on ES and stuff like that. I've not, I have not traded ES as much, mainly because of my own discipline. Do you know what I mean? Because I know that I still sometimes have the tendency to add 1 or 2 contracts when I shouldn't be adding it, and that if that was 1 or 2 extra ES contracts, then that would be the difference of completely blowing my account or just losing 100 or 200. Do you know what I mean? And so um, comparing it to other people's gains certainly leads to over trading and ultimately losing trades as well,
Yeah,
I
we
think.
had we had a student today who closed his trade for something like $900, and as soon as he closed it, the market rocketed 15 points. Yeah, and I messaged him privately and I went, look, like that's £800. If someone said to you, go and do a job for 20 minutes and I give you £800, you will take it, no brainer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I find as well, like even like normally when I enter a trade, I look at where the trade can get to. Okay. And I always aim for 10 points. I always make sure that there's room for 10 points. But once those 10 points are achieved, if I see any type of resistance to the next candle where it starts to wick or anything, I don't care if it's gonna go. The way I look at it is my job is done here. And the thing with adding, right? When you take a trade and the trade immediately goes in your direction, yeah, that is a great feeling, right? That is an incredible feeling. And it's almost the anxiety and the stress is gone from when you press the buy or sell. The problem is when you add, that anxiety and stress comes back
Comes back again. Yeah.
till it goes in your direction. And if it doesn't go in your direction, your money goes down twice as fast. Yeah. So a trade that could have been up, like let's just say the trade gets to 10 points and then you add there and the trade comes down 5, you're almost at 0 again. Whereas
Hmm.
if you didn't add, your trade
Totally.
would be in profit and
Totally.
you would have done um half of your uh just 1 second, guys.
You
Sorry,
say drop.
I'm just on a meeting.
The other thing, just while he's doing that as well, is like for example, right now, if any of you guys are trading
I'll
this
call you
right now,
back.
Like,
No,
like so,
he's downstairs. I'll call you back.
He's here.
I know. Okay, bye. Yeah. So
like this trade, for example, right now. This, and I've done this before, and I don't know if you guys do this, right? Like you know, you start off on your normal size, right? Start the trade off with, like, for example, this trade here, I took it down. I took 2 contracts, right? Of course, in my mind now, I'm thinking I should have took 5 because look where it's gone right now. Do you know what I mean? You know, and
what you
and
should
then
do, what you should
then
do,
you start to think
what
I
you
should.
should do, you're right. And I've never ever been one to add, yeah, because in my mind, I'm entering this trade at the most optimal position there is, yeah, because I have confidence in my entries, right? I then don't want to ruin that entry by adding contracts. If you think that the trade's going to continue to go, when it gets to 10 points, trim 90% off. Yeah, now the trade is completely free. So if you're trading 10 mez, take 9 off and let that one runner go. If it goes another 15 points, wicked. If it comes down to 5, it's not going to hurt your trade that much, you know? And listen, I'm not one to tell people how to trade because that's your money and that's your style. But I've always found that adding contracts is just it's just a nightmare for me, you know, because I've got that anxiety again, and I don't want that anxiety. I want to enter the trade, and the next candle I want it to go in my direction and just chill. Gets to 10 points, I'm out of the trade, and then I turn the charts off, you know. And in terms of that comparing, and I've always preached that, like, eventually we're all going to be trading 10 accounts at the same time, yeah. And whatever you've made that day, if you times it by 10, you probably would have exited the trade. But it's trying to get that mindset into people and be like, okay, I've just made 800. Really, that's 8 grand. I'm just going to close the trade now and continue and go about my day. But people find it difficult because it's almost like you're making a vast sum of money so quickly, you know, and that gives people that dopamine hit that they want again and again and again. And then there's nothing worse than starting the day up £1,200 in 10 minutes. And then by the time market closes, you're on 300. Because
Yes,
that mindset carries on the next day. Yeah. Because you think to yourself, now I need to make the £1,000 that I lost yesterday, as well as today's gains, to be on track for making £1,000 a day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if you, let's just say your target is to make £1,000 a day, that's fine. And you end up from going from 1,000 to 300, you now in your mindset will be, I'm 700 short. So now today, when the trade gets to 1,000, you might not close thinking, I need to get that extra 700.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll close the trade and then later on take another rubbish trade. And now you're back to 300 again today as well. And I always say this to people, which is why last week we had a massive week. Like the gains that the students got last week was great. People passed their accounts, whatever. And I said this to people, last week is not the same as this week. There is weeks that I've made over 140 grand. One week was £140,000. The following week, I made 40. You cannot compare, even yesterday, you can't compare yesterday's gains to today because the market's different every single day. The picture is different. The scenario is different. You cannot allow that kind of trading to come into the next day. Every day should be a blank slate. I'm going to try and get my 10 points today. And after that, I'm going to walk away. And one of the main reasons why I created what I wanted to do today is because of Saj. Saj brought up the fact that he was making his profits in the first 20, 30, 40 minutes of the day. And he felt like he was doing himself a disservice of not carrying on trading. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's just, you know, it's related to overtrading in a sense and, you know, contract size and all of this. But ultimately it's more so like I'm challenging myself in my head because now that I'm stopping once I'm getting to 1,000, once I've made my 10 points for the day on 2 ES contracts. I'm thinking, there's so much more time left in the day. I should be doing more. I should probably be sitting here on the chart, because the last time I was practicing on my last evaluation account, I was spending 6 hours. So that difference in closing, like logging out of my TradeAway and closing my laptop within like 20, 30 minutes, it just feels so wrong to me, because it's this whole time whilst I've been learning to trade and trying to become profitable, I've just condition myself in a way to just spend as much time as I can on the charts, right? Because at the start, you need more chart time to start understanding how things work. But I think now it's getting to the point for myself where more chart time is actually causing me more detriment than it is actually helping. And so now I'm having to close my laptop and walk away. I'm just fighting within myself, thinking, go back to your laptop, open it, or at least check it every 10 minutes to see what's going on. And just having the discipline now to just not think about it straight away is something that I'm really struggling with. So I think it was Wednesday and Thursday last week, I messaged Mins and I was like, this is what's going on in my mind. Like I'm literally itching to grab my laptop just to open it and place another trade. But equally, I'm up 1,000, so I don't want to lose it, and the the idea of losing it is deterring me now. Whereas before, when it was on Mes, where I'm trading like making 50, £100, the idea of losing £20 is not as scary, right? Whereas because it's on an ES now, the idea of even losing 200, which is the same move equivalent, is like, is it really worth placing another trade, bringing that anxiety and stress back for the sake of £200, and that even being a loser? So at the moment, I'm just conditioning, like reprogramming my mind almost, that look, if you carry on at this rate where you're doing £1,000 a day within half an hour, by day 20 you will pass your 300k account, and then 10 days after that, 10 trading days after that, I'll be 2.5 grand above the threshold to withdraw and get my first payout. So in my mind, I'm not thinking about it as though it's an ES trade. I'm still treating it as if it's Mes. And I think what's helping is the fact that I'm doing 10 Mes, where as opposed to one ES. I don't know what it is psychologically, whether it's just the fact that I know I'm on a Mes chart. I know I've got more control over how much leverage I'm using in terms of contract position. And yeah, it's just something that I'm finding it difficult, but I've stuck to it so far for 4 days since I've got my 300k evaluation. I'm like 4,700 up in like 4 days. So I've got another 50
Amazing.
to go. I'm basically a quarter of the way through. And again, because I'm £200 away from 5,000, me on the previous contract size and evaluation, I probably would have carried on because it would be £25 equivalent. And that trying to chase that £25, I probably would have lost the 50 or the £100 that I made previously. But because now I'm like £1,000, man, like, and this is just on one account, right? And I'm still only on one evaluation. Obviously, by the time I get consistently being able to do this and walk away, that walking away bit is the bit that I'm like just working on at the moment, because I know I can do it. Like I know I've got a 10-point trade in me every day. So I don't need to prove that to myself. Now it's just a stage of proving to myself that you can walk away once you've made your money. And that's where that feeling of I'm letting myself down, I need to spend more time on the charts. And this is what I've like come to a conclusion with in my mind and speaking to Mins. And it comes back to, being conditioned to say you need to work the maximum amount of time possible on a trading chart to maximize the amount of profit. If you were to copy like institutional thinking of the more hours you work, the more you're going to get paid. Whereas getting rid of that by doing the things like once your day is done for 10 points, whatever that is, whether it's one Mes, two Mes, just stop. And if you can keep that discipline, I think like this last 4 days, I've made more money that I have on evaluation than I ever have done before, just
Mhm.
because I'm learning to stop. And it is frustrating because I've gone through evaluations. I've got to a PA account. I've got to the stage where I'm like £300 away. And as a result of over trading and not leaving that day when I should have, when I was £100 up, which would now be 1,000 mes, because I wasn't leaving and stopping, trying to chase that last £200, just rushing it literally has taken me like 10 steps back. So I think that last burn really, really burnt me enough to like make me really think about how I'm gonna add the discipline, like reintroduce my discipline back into it, because I've proven to myself that I can do it. I've got past the evaluation, I've got to the PA, I've got £200 away. So there's no reason why I should stop now, like, or I should give up. Like Min says, you know, most people give up because at the end of it, it's because they don't know when to walk away. That dopamine hit of continuously winning trades means you're going to keep coming back. And whatever you do gain, you lose. And because then you end up losing more, you end up quitting trading, and then you're going back to whatever you had plans for before, right? But the fact that I got so close, like, to me, it's like, you know, you're like one stretch away. There's no point in giving up now. So I went back, took a break from evaluations and Apex, and I was like, you know what, let me just take this time out, do it on paper trading where I'm not really, it's got less anxiety to it, but I'm still practicing the process. And if it goes wrong, it goes wrong, and I'm not losing any money, and I actually can go back, look through it, what's happening, and then assess my psychology behind it all. Was I overtrading and XYZ? But yeah, like I say, since moving over to the new 300k account, having that extra cushion of drawdown and only trading 1 or 2 mes, making my 1,000 in one trade and then calling it a day, I've found a lot has helped a lot with walking away. So yeah, it's been a hard month so far for me, but I've come out of it, and I can see the progress of all that hard work I've done in this last month. So I'm just glad for it, to be honest.
You know, in terms of that the whole walking away thing, and like spending time in front of the charts. Spending time in front of the charts is key in the learning process, yeah. But once you're on an evaluation account and you've passed your and you're up 10 points, close the laptop, come back at 9 o'clock when the market's closed. You can't take a trade, and you can
Mm,
see where your strategy would have been profitable.
mhm,
Yeah, you can see, okay, there's a market structure shift there. There's a pullback to 60%. There's a valid trade. What was the overall market shape? Did it hold? Was there a 60% retrace, etc., etc.? That doesn't mean that you don't take you don't do screen time. Not at all. I'm not saying that. Like, I'm not saying just look at the screen time to just 10 minutes a day. But there is a way to do it, and you have to be disciplined enough to say to yourself, okay, cool, like, even though I'm looking at the charts,
mm.
I'm not going to take a trade. If that means just log out of Tradeovate, right? Log out of Tradeovate and don't go back in until the next
But the
day.
chart time thing that you say, right? Like, I've been options trading, futures trading for what, like 2 years now. It's going to be in January coming up, and it's got to a point, like you mentioned it the other time, during a meeting we had, Mins, where sometimes less knowledge is better for you, right? And because of the amount of chart time I've spent over the last 2 years, it was also getting to a point where I was overcomplicating it in my mind. So I would argue for both sides, for the bulls and the bears. So I would enter a trade, and then I would be like, oh, but the bears could be arguing to say, oh, this is going to go down because of X, Y, and Z. And then I would either not hold my position for long enough, close the trade, open it the opposite way, because I've been arguing for the bears since I've been in this bullish position, and then I'll just get caught up in my mind. So not only is it already a 50-50 probability of it working out when you're pressing the buttons between buy and sell, I'm making it an extra 50-50 probability in my head because I'm arguing within myself. And I
Totally.
was using two different strategies that would give conflicting answers at the same time, and I was just like, what is going on? And as a result of that, I was losing, because also I found that the trades I was placing earlier on in the day, my mind was fresh, it was accurate, it was fine, like I was clean slate. And the trades where I was arguing with myself for both sides was when I was chasing profit or just had a loss or just had a big drawdown. So by walking away from that laptop, once I'm up and that 10 points, I've eliminated all of the extra stuff there of arguing within myself, and I've simplified it down, and I'm just focusing on my daily bias, my pivot points and my fibs from there. That's all I'm
When you
doing now.
I think
when you
to add on to that as well, in terms of screen time, um, certainly at the beginning, I think certainly at the beginning, you know, the more screen time you can get, the better, right? Because I think it takes, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong here, but I would say at least, and this is after you've gone through the course, after you understand exactly what we're teaching, right? I think you need a good, at least a good 6 months, right, on just looking at charts. I'm talking every day. And this is me speaking to like newbies here, right? Real newbies every day. So that when you're looking at a chart, not that necessarily now you understand after 6 months, it's just that you will start to understand
Mm,
once you start to put in all the things that we're teaching, how these charts are actually moving. Going back to what leads to over trading and too much screen time, for me personally, right? I know that if I've been sitting in front, so let's say I had a good win at the beginning, or let's say I didn't even win nothing on the at the beginning of the day, first hour of the trade. Now I've been sitting on a chart for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. Let's say, it's now 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Part of you now is also, and this has certainly happened to me, is if my trade, let's say I take a trade now and the trade's up $100, I have ended up holding on to that trade longer than probably I wanted to, because I've said in my mind, I've said to myself, I've been sitting here looking on the chart for the last 5 hours for what? Just $100. That's
mm.
not, I can make more than that flipping Ubering right now, right? I've never Ubered, by the way, but but that's also a factor as well, is the fact that I've been sitting here for all these hours in front of the chart, and what I ended up walking away with $50. You know, now the truth is, at least you're not red. At least you're not red. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And having that discipline and knowing that you were able to sit in front of the chart for 5 hours and only walk away with $100, and knowing that you're up and being okay with that is a bit of an art form, because the next day, if you could still keep that same discipline, it's going to be 10 times more. Do you know what I mean? And I think, means you might have said this one time, once before, right? Is in five days a week trading, right? If you're trading, Monday to Friday, if you had 1 or 2, 3 days, red days, but they were low day, $20 loss, $30 loss, but then on your fourth day you go and make 1,500, 2 grand, then who cares about those three, red crappy days that you had?
Mhm.
We all have choppy days, 4 days of chop, and then the last day everything flipping flies, you know.
Yeah.
It's ultimately it comes back to the things that we are teaching in the group, which is that discipline, is having that target in your mind, and mapping out in the chart already, these are the areas that I want to get to, and if it doesn't get it, then don't take the trade. You're not losing if you're not trading.
I think
yeah,
what's also helped me is actually having like shorter term goals. Like obviously long term target is to have like 10 accounts like Mins does, right? And be making 1 grand on one account, and then obviously it's copying across the 10. That's your 10 grand for the day done. But in the grand scheme of things, right? Even on one account, where in the last 4 days I've managed to take it to 4,700, right? That's a lot of money for a month, right? In the space of 4 days. So in my mind, I'm just thinking, I've traded 20 days of working for 4 days, and even if it means I stay on one account for the rest of my life, right? If I can consistently do that, even that would be enough, right? Obviously, afterwards, when you're leveraging more accounts and stuff, it's going to be amazing because that same amount of effort you're putting in is a lot more rewarding. But I think for me, having that short term goal of, okay, look, if you carry on at this consistency and keeping this discipline, you could probably only need to trade 2, 3 days in a month. and you could carry on existing as you are now, right? And having that shorter term target has helped me like focus my mind again as to why I'm actually doing this, right? We don't want to spend all day sitting in front of the chart. We want to live our life and spend money and do whatever it is our heart desires. And I think just rewiring my brain and connecting those two dots is, if you keep doing this consistently, you can replace your 20 days of work for 4. And that is the main thing I'm focusing on right now, which is helping me so much.
And
Mhm.
in terms of overtrading and stuff, I promise you, if you all journaled, right, the worst trade you'll place is a trade you place after a loss, right? You close a
Definitely.
trade for a loss, okay, and then you think, damn, like my first trade's a loss, and then you probably trade the opposite way of which way you're going, okay, then that becomes a loss, and then you might take one more, going the opposite way of the way you was originally going, and then that might break even or be a loss. And it's being able, and I always say this is a rule of thumb that every new trader should follow. If you take a trade in London and lose, don't trade until New York Open. By the time New York opens, the picture will be so much more clearer for you to understand that the trade will find you, right? Like you can see, like if you look at today's charts, London double topped, and then we started going down. By the time New York opened, we retraced from the high of day to 60%, and then the market dumped. Textbook 60% retracement. Now, if you carried on trading in London from that loss, you might have blown your account in one session, you know? And let's just say you take a loss in New York again, and then you don't trade till New York PM and you take another loss. As long as you manage your risk, those 3 losses will mean that you can come back tomorrow and try again. But consistently chasing that loss and loss will mean you've taken a hit so big and damaged your account so big that it doesn't leave much room for the next day. You know, and you have to be. And you know what? Another thing that I want to cover today, right now. Most of the people that join the calls, there's 2 things actually. Most of the people that join the calls, they paid somewhere between £500 or they're paying a monthly subscription, right? Now, on one account, if you get to payout, okay, let's just say your payout's £1,500, okay, your first payout. You've now covered the cost of your course, the cost of your trading view for the whole year, and the cost of any evaluations that you might have taken. That's all you need to do. Get to your first payout. Yeah. After that, your trading journey is completely free. Secondly, for those that have seen people on Instagram that are professional traders that have been doing this a lot longer than me, you, or anyone else in the group, there is never a day where they sit in front of the charts all day. Never. If you watch these people's live, they might trade the New York Open, or they might trade London, or they might trade the PM session. They take one trade a day, whether that's a loss or a win, and they are done. They are not interested in sitting in front of the charts, taking a win, taking another win, taking another win. They will have one trade and they're done for the day, whether it's a loss or a win. Now, if these are the people that inspired us to get into trading, whether it's Umar Sharif, whether it's Stock Market Wolf, whether it's whoever, yeah, and they're only doing one trade a day, why are we then in the frame of mind where we need to sit in front of the charts for 9 hours? You know, there's a reason. They will have a plan. This is my bias. The market gets here, I'm going to short. Or if they have a bullish, the market gets here, I'm going to buy. Once that happens, they'll enter the trade. If it doesn't work out, they are done for the day and they'll come back tomorrow. And that way, their trading journey never ends. And they might take a loss on a Monday, but trust me, on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, the wins that they make will have no effect at all on that loss that they made on Monday. Or some of them, if there's no red folder news, they just won't trade. Because a red folder news day means that there's more likely to be movement in the market. It's as simple as that. Which is why today I made my money in the Asia session, and then I didn't trade the rest of the day. I traded on paper on the charts just to show people entries, but I am not in. You couldn't pay me enough to take another trade today because it's election day tomorrow, and there's no red folders today. So the fact that I'm up 10 points I didn't even expect to be up 10 points today because of what had happened. There's no red folders and there's stuff coming out in America.
I think just on your point there about, all these other traders like Umar Ashraf and Jay Dunn and Tanja Trades or ICT, whoever it is that you guys look at online, I think it's also important to remember that as day traders, retail traders, like not working for any sort of company or anything, they at some point in time were in the same shoes that we were. And just as three of us in this meeting room, right? All traders are human. And if one of them can do it, like nothing is really stopping any of us to do it either. And I think it is difficult to carry on when you are consistently getting close and not quite getting there, or have these setbacks and you blow your account or whatever. But I think if we just reframe that in a way to say this is just like the things you need to learn to be able to hold that performance account once you get to it, because it's happened to me. I've got my performance account and I've blown it, and there's no worse feeling than that. It feels worse than an evaluation account. And every time that happens, yes, I feel shit, but I just remind myself that it just wasn't meant to be, right? There's clearly something that I haven't learned, which is why this has happened. And all of these other traders that are now able to take one trade or two trades and then call it a day and bounce, whether it's a winner or a loser, is because they've gone through the same process that we're all going through right now. And just remembering that as well. Like even some of, like I was telling Mins last week, Tuesday, Jay Dunn, Thursday and Friday, he made $200 and $600. On those same days, I made 1,000 each day. And that really just like put it out in my head, like you can do it. And just because, you're struggling right now, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be struggling all the time. So just, keep persevering, keep pushing, and it is possible. And Mins is the prime example of it as the guru mentor.
Do you know why why trading is so accessible now? There's no, like, if you want to be a pro footballer, you have to have a talent. Yeah, you have to or a boxer or a tennis player, or whatever. The only difference between Jay Dunn, Stock Market Wolf, and anyone else in the group, including the three people here, is they've just been doing it longer. And another thing as well is they have probably learned from their mistakes. Now, if you get an evaluation account, you blow it, get an evaluation account, blow it, get the evaluation account, blow it, get it to PA, blow it. There is something that you are repeatedly doing again and again and again. And that is what you have to identify. And I'll guarantee you there's probably going to be two things. You're either overtrading, or every time you take a loss, you can't walk away and you're revenge trading. Those are the only two reasons why an account gets blown. And when I mean revenge trading is if you take a loss on 5 MES, you then trade 10 MES to get it back. And now you've got a 15 MES loss. And it's too much to recover from. Those are the only two reasons why people will find this frustrating. But the problem is that psychological part has to come from within yourself. You have to be able to say to yourself, right, I'm in London. Before London opens, I'm going to take a trade here. It looks like this is where it's going. My entry is going to be 0.6, and you execute. If it doesn't happen, you don't just take a trade for the sake of the market moving in one direction. You have to have a reason to enter, and you have to have a reason as why the market is moving in your favor. Is there liquidity above, etc.? But trading does not require any God-given talent. Like my 12-year-old son was paper trading and he was up to £300 at times on 2 MES contracts. So it's not like you need talent. You just need to be able to identify where you're going wrong and not repeat it, and be strict with yourself. You know, there is no job in the world where you can be up on one ES contract $500 in a space of maybe 5-minute candle. There's no job that's going to pay you that, you know? And you have to be able to say to yourself that you're in a privileged position where you know how to do this, you know? Because there is many people in the world that don't know about trading or don't know how easy and quickly you can make $500 or $1,000, you know? But you have to always see yourself as, this is my account size and my job is to protect this. Okay, if you have a 300k account, you have 7,500 as your drawdown. Your job is to protect 7,500 at all costs. You don't want to put that £7,500 account at risk because you've taken a B or a C class trade. You wait patiently, and that's why the 0.6 is great, because you can just draw the fib and wait for it to come there. Okay, you don't have to, there's no guesswork. You patiently wait for it to come and retrace into there. But your job isn't to calculate how much money I'm going to make today. If you can manage risk, okay, if you can manage your account size and your drawdown, the profits will come easily, because you're not going to take 20 trades that are red. But if you can manage and only risk 5% of your drawdown on a 1-to-3 risk to reward ratio, you can lose 2 trades and the third trade will hit and you'll make all your money. You know? So yeah, is there anything else that anybody wants to add?
Well, I think that's it from my side.
Same.
Okay.
Happy trading.
Yes, happy trading, and stick to it, and do not overtrade, and
I want to talk.
be grateful that you've made your money in 10 minutes and you can have a 10-minute working day. Because that is why we are doing this, for freedom of time. Nobody can tell us when to take our lunch break. Nobody can tell us where to go on holiday. Nobody can tell us how long we decide to work. You put the charts, you place your trade, you've made enough money in the day that is the same as what people make in a month, and you go and enjoy your day. But try to avoid sitting in front of the charts for hours and hours and hours. If you want to understand how the charts work, come back when the market is closed and do your analytical work then.
I think also for everyone in the group, anything that you're struggling with psychologically or anything when it comes to, or emotionally when it comes to trading, like, don't be afraid to just message us, even if it is privately. Like, on this podcast, we've talked about how even we're still struggling with it at times, and our journey so far, like, we're still going through it and or have been through it. So don't be afraid to just ask someone who's been there before, because it can help a lot.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, brilliant. Let's end it there.